Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here, the fire danger graphic here. No warnings, watches, or advisories for rain, wind, or anything else out around the state, but we do have extreme fire danger now in the upper Yukon Valley, in the flats area there. Again, in and around the intersection of the Porcupine and Yukon rivers, and either side of that, with high fire danger zones surrounding that area. Actually pulled a little bit north here from what it was yesterday, and a patch of high fire danger, an area of here over toward Northway Tok and the highway there of the Alaska Highway, and then here a couple areas on the west side of the Western Alaska Range and the Kuskokwim Valley. Otherwise, everywhere else, not too bad. And for the satellite imagery, I see some good clearing here today. Bristol Bay, it actually persisted through the afternoon. There's some high stuff moving eastward there from the prairie lofts. But that extended across Kodiak Island. Actually, clouds increasing, low clouds here approaching the east side of Kodiak haven't reached or made landfall yet, but they probably will this evening. And quite an extensive area of low clouds covering the Gulf of Alaska and beginning to push up into Bristol Bay and possibly even southern Cook Inlet later on tonight and into tomorrow. Otherwise, some sunshine scattered around the southeast coast, some showers scattered around the southeast coast, and thunderstorms developing also in an area just southwest of Petersburg, and to a lesser extent north of Petersburg there over the central panhandle, and that'll continue probably through the afternoon and end whenever it decides to this evening. Also, again, thunderstorms breaking out across a fairly wide area from the northern Koyukuk Valley, but into the Tanana Valley, thunderstorms in and around the greater Glen Allen-Gulkana zone there, with also Susitna Valley, specifically the Talkeetna Mountains, the Chugach Mountains, and the Kenai Peninsula. Here by 3 p.m., lightning strikes in all of those areas. Otherwise, back to the southwest here, pretty warm temperature, 75 at 3 p.m. at King Salmon, and 77 at Big Lake and Stony River. The warmest locations, those are the three warmest locations in the state today, with lower 70s, though, in areas up into the interior. Low clouds and fog in areas scattered across the Chukchi Sea from the Arctic coast there down into the Bering Sea, as high pressure continues to hold out in this area and keeping this weak front back to the west there. That's keeping the steady rain, keeps on falling at Shimmy and Attu. Winds gusting up to about 30 miles an hour, and that's about it. Otherwise, light wind conditions with area generally cloudy with areas of low clouds, fog, and drizzle. Pretty sparse, actually, here across the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, but the sunshine you can see here, Kodiak Island, and then the lower clouds edging their way in toward the east side there, but they haven't made it quite yet. And then the thunderstorms here along this trough, and then along the trough into the Tanana Valley as well, as the southeast coast here, again, southwest of Petersburg. And for tonight, again, those thunderstorms will end sometime overnight tonight, maybe this evening here with the Panhandle, leaving just a few isolated showers behind. Look for some of that low cloud deck, possible drizzle to show up along the central coast of the Panhandle. And that'll extend over much of the Gulf of Alaska and may even probably will push into Prince William Sound, or continue to, as well as maybe working up into southern Cook Inlet. Definitely will move into Kodiak tonight with that low trough to your west. And thermal low actually there with a warm temperature this afternoon over the Bristol Bay area, especially the inland zones. Otherwise, not too much. Decrease in the thunderstorm activity. Also decrease in the showers, although thunderstorms may linger here in the central Alaska range, say from Denali Park on up into maybe Tanana, possibly the central Tanana Valley there, but dry to the north with clearing skies and fog, low clouds, again, possible anywhere along the Arctic coast through the Bering Strait on down across all of the Bering Sea here. This high pressure area continues to hold in place and actually kind of edging its way westward a little bit, and that front out there is getting pushed westward as well. And you can see even the precipitation field tomorrow now is even west of the Shimmy Attu area, and more over the Komodorski. So this is really just imposed its will over the entire Bering Sea and the Aleutians. So light winds continue, low clouds and fog continue. Maybe some clearing mostly along the southwest coast here, especially where the offshore flow is. Same thing for the Seward Peninsula. And then thunderstorms, Noatak Valley may be here, western DeLong Mountains or the DeLong Mountains western Brooks Range, and then again in the interior. A day much like today here over much of interior Alaska. Differences being marine push starting to work up Cook Inlet, kind of questionable how much low clouds will follow it along tomorrow night, and especially on Sunday. Otherwise, not much change here. Probably won't see the thunderstorm activity over the panhandle you saw today, but then again, maybe you will. Showers more likely in the afternoon, along with some sunshine, especially early on. Outlook for Sunday, system finally works northward here. That's been kind of progressing eastward, finally breaking off and pushing some rainfall up into the southern panhandle as early as late Saturday night, and by late Sunday afternoon, could see some light rain pushing as far north as a line from, say, Juneau, maybe to Elfin Cove, but the best chance definitely will be the farther south you go. So kind of a signal of a pattern change there, with this high continuing to retrograde westward in the Bering there, and really this little or no flow over interior Alaska. So we see thunderstorms once again, but kind of a more stable air mass here over southern Alaska, probably just resulting in a few scattered showers. And again, we'll have to watch for that low cloud deck coming into northern Cook Inlet or beyond on Sunday. And Kenai Peninsula, partly sunny in the afternoon, probably cloudy all day for Prince William Sound with low clouds. Copper River Basin, mostly sunny, risk of a thunderstorm, mostly up toward the Alaska Range, even less thunderstorm activity over the eastern interior, and that could result in more sunshine and possibly warmer temperatures by 3 to 6 degrees over what you'll see tomorrow there, central and eastern interior zones. And for lows for that area, in the 40s here for the central interior, mid to upper. Some cases maybe eagle down to 38, otherwise 40s Copper River Basin, 45 to 50 southern Alaska, lower 50s for the mild areas of Bristol Bay, upper 30s for the Pribilofs, mid 30s St. Lawrence Island, 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, 70s all the way almost to the southwest coast here, definitely for Bethel, right up the Yukon and Kuskokwim River Valley areas into the Tanana Valley and all the way to the border with good 70s there, and upper 50s to mid 60s for the southeast coast, 60s southern Alaska, mid 50s Kodiak with the low clouds and fog. Lows Sunday morning, not much different from what you'll see tomorrow morning. Arctic coast upper 20s to lower 30s and 45 to 50 for the Panhandle. Same thing across southern Alaska, a little cooler, more lower to mid 40s for the Copper River Basin. Highs could be milder here, could be maybe 75 to 81 here over the central and eastern interior. Otherwise, not much change, 60s again southern Alaska, 55 to 65 for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic, Saturday morning IFR here. Practically all the Aleutians, southern Bering Sea, and then north here, catching Nunivak Island and portion of the Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, of course through the Strait and up and along the Arctic coast. VFR, central eastern interior. We've got starting out with some marginal VFR, looks like all the way up to the areas of marginal VFR here, possible in this shaded area, all the way up to the Alaska Range. IFR, more widespread due to the low cloud cover out here from Kodiak Island right up into Prince William Sound, maybe even southern Cook Inlet. And then that same pattern here remaining off the southeast coast. For the afternoon, that's vanishes, but you're left with marginal VFR across all the Panhandle there. IFR in the Gulf of Alaska still extends up into Prince William Sound due to low clouds. Marine layer there and along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, east side of Kodiak, and VFR over the interior with the afternoon convection firing up into thunderstorms, mainly through these areas here where it's marked, which is just about all the interior, but it won't be that widespread. Anyway, IFR, Central Arctic coast mostly, and remaining here eastern Bering from the Bering Strait down across the Pribilofs, Fox Islands, some of the Alaska Peninsula, and the Aleutians. For the following morning, Sunday morning here, we've got IFR out here over all of the Bering and the Aleutians, except for an open area out there in the central Bering, and then IFR again, heaviest there in the morning hours along the Arctic coast. And it looks like IFR now up along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, possibly as far north as Rainy Pass, VFR, Northern Cook Inlet, Matanuska Valley, though, and then IFR back along Prince William Sound. Panhandle stays marginal. And for the afternoon, now you're going VFR for the southeast coast. Sunday afternoon looking pretty good here for the Panhandle, up into the Copper River Basin and into the interior, with mostly marginal or VFR scattered around south central Alaska and into Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island looking pretty good. VFR for the afternoon Sunday. IFR Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and areas of kind of skirting the Arctic coast here. And for the passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, VFR tomorrow, and Lake Clark and Merrill, possibly becoming marginal as the clouds build during the day, and again, isolated thunderstorms possible. And rainy, I think, will stay VFR with the ceiling staying above that marginal threshold. Windy, VFR. Isabel and Mentasta, another VFR day coming up for Saturday, as well as Tanita. Portage, though, with the low clouds, probably will see some IFR, especially on the eastern entrance throughout the day. And Chilcoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels, both really for Saturday and Sunday, the same here. It's kind of a package deal here for really not a lot of change, looking roughly 6,000 to 7,000 feet here across most of the area, in the Bering Sea, maybe up to 8,000 way out west. And as far as icing goes, we've got areas of possible mixed icing probably will occur here. It'll be in the convective showers or thunderstorms there, roughly in these shaded areas above about 7,000 feet or so. And the jet stream showing upper level ridging here, still out over the Bering Sea, and more or less weakly in across the interior here, with a weak low south, or in the southern Gulf of Alaska actually. And we've got one jet well to the south, staying south of the area, and this one barely catching the Arctic coast, really not that active of a stream flow up there. So 9,000 feet showing high pressure here, light winds over the Bering Sea. Very weak low here along the Yukon Delta coast, or maybe even a little off the coast, but very weak flow around that. And weak flow over all interior Alaska here at 9,000 feet, maybe 15 to 20 knots due to a system there crossing the Arctic farther to the north. And then a little bit of an increase here along the Aleutians, 15 to 20 knots, with the 25 knot winds at this elevation. Look like they'll stay south of the Aleutians. So we're looking at light winds, maybe 5 to 15 Kodiak, light through the ridge in the Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle, 3,000 feet, much the same pattern, really light winds, variable, all of the interior Panhandle, 15 knots out of the west on the Arctic coast, central and east side, and 15 to 20 possibly along or south of the Aleutians. Turbulence, none expected, no significant turbulence expected anywhere in the state. Of course, the exception would be in the actual convective cells themselves, but of course you'd want to avoid those anyway, along with the icing that would go along with it. But other than that, looking pretty smooth just about everywhere across the state.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or GINA, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Well, Dave, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting us again.
Sure thing. And today we want to talk about identifying burn scars. That would be the burned up area after a wildfire when the flames and the smoke are gone. We can see it if you drive by it on the roadway, of course, but from satellite, we can also identify those places on the land, right?
You know it. You know that expression, ouch, that's going to leave a mark?
Yeah.
After you bang your knee getting out of the car.
Oh yeah.
Well, the ouch, it's going to leave a mark, that also applies to the landscape. Whenever a wildfire ravages through, it's going to leave a mark on the landscape. After a wildfire burns out, this is called a burn scar.
Okay.
And you can ask yourself, well, that's interesting. We can see a burn scar from space. Right. Then the question is, well, why does that matter?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, fire's over.
Right, the fire is over. We don't need to worry about this anymore. It turns out you kind of do, because burn scars are important. There's this old rule of thumb in the weather business that flood follows fire. Okay. The action of the fire in killing off the vegetation, in baking, kiln drying the landscape a little bit, can hinder the land's ability to absorb rainfall. So if you have a fire especially if it's in complex mountainous terrain.
Right.
This is classic in California. It can happen somewhat in Alaska too. You get a wildfire in steep, hilly, or mountainous terrain, rips off all the vegetation off the landscape. Then 6 months later, there's a big rainstorm, and you get a flash flood in that area. So
Right.
flood can follow fire. That's why you got to know
Okay.
where the burn
That's
scars
important.
are. Secondly, a fire needs fuel to maintain itself. So if there's an old burn scar left over from a year or two ago, and then another summer later here in Alaska in the interior, it's a big wildfire season. If there's a fire advancing toward an old burn scar, well, guess what? That old burn scars can be tougher terrain for that new fire to get through because there's not as much fuel in that burn scar. So they almost act like a natural fire break. These are a couple of reasons why you need to know where those burn scars are. Alaska Fire Service has limited resources. They want to put their people and their equipment
Sure.
where it does the most good. They need to know, well, this is an area where there's no burn scar. We better put people here because that fire could really run.
So
That's why
really,
we do
really
it.
important for weather forecasters and fire weather forecasters for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But then how do weather satellites actually detect those burn scars?
Ah, good question.
Thanks.
Well, let's turn the Wayback Machine to the summer of 2015. That was a
Okay.
very active year. Got a picture here taken up in the White Mountains. This is one of the fires in progress that summer, and if you look real close, you can almost see Frodo throwing the ring into
Right,
the
no kidding.
volcano there. So that's quite the vision. Well, let's look at a visible image. Here we are in Alaska's interior. This is before the fires got out of the cage in early summer of 2015. Let's zoom into the western interior here. Again, this is a weather satellite image of visible light, what the human eye can see. We're into the middle reach of the Yukon Valley there in the western interior, Galena area. And this is just a beautiful visible day. Nothing much going on. It's in early June before the fires really got active. But then in 2015, the fires got loose, especially in that western interior.
Right.
Here's another image. The same satellite pass as
Okay.
that visible image, but now we're not quite looking at visible light.
Very different.
There's a slight change here. This image incorporates something called the veggie band.
Okay.
0.86 micron wavelength. The micron's very tiny,
Yeah.
but that wavelength responds to vegetation, the chlorophyll. So trees and grasses reflect that part of the electromagnetic spectrum back to the satellite. And so the satellite sees that. When signal comes at that wavelength to the satellite, we know, there's some vegetation growing there. This is great. You can identify coastlines so easily because you go from vegetation to water. Turns out if you have a burn scar, guess what? You burned away the vegetation, so that's going to show up. We're going to do a before, during, and after kind of look here. And so we're looking at before. So in this image, we got a lot of green out there. That's wonderful.
Right.
Another fun thing about this kind of imagery is you can see down in the Alaska Range in the southeast corner of the image, it's blue.
Yeah.
That's glaciers and snow in the
of course.
mountains.
Okay.
So this is not really what the human eye can see. This is these wavelengths are beyond human vision, but we've made them look certain colors. So the vegetation looks green. Now let's look at that same kind of satellite recipe, but during the fires. This is in July. The fires are loose. You can see the smoke in the middle of the image, the smearing look of the smoke, and then we can see some clouds that are white, icy clouds are blue. So this is in July of 2015. The fires are doing their thing. We're burning up millions of acres. Now let's go to September. The fires are out. The audience has left the theater. You know, the event's over, right? We're done. But guess what? Now look at those brown patches.
Look at that.
All of those places are where the fire has burned away the vegetation. So you can see where the fires were. You can add up these perimeters, get acreage burned and such. And so that's good to know. Now remember, flood follows fire, and these are also natural fire breaks. So you need to know where these guys are. In the course of the 2015 summer season, we went from before with not much burn scar in this area to just a couple months later, we can see so much burn scarring on the landscape. What's interesting too about the satellite and looking at burn scars is you realize that burn scars are the gift that keeps on giving. You can forget that a couple of years ago maybe there was a fire in a certain area, but the satellite won't forget. So in the summertime we get wildfires in Alaska, but guess what? In the visible imagery here we can see the burn scars just a little bit, but they're not as prominent as in that veggie band. But then you can't see them at all if you cover them up with snow, right?
Exactly.
So here's an image from the middle of the winter time,
wow.
and snow on the ground by this recipe looks blue. Again, these are wavelengths of light that the human eye can't really see. We're getting up into the infrared, near infrared, and the way we've assigned colors is if there's snow on the ground or there's a glacier, it looks blue, kind of intuitive. So this is early April of the following year, 2016.
Okay.
We're just about to get into breakup. We got a lot of snow on the ground, and now it's all going to melt. And as the snow melts, then you get our final image here. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like a lot of what we saw in September of the previous summer. So this is the spring of the next year. The fires themselves might not have overwintered, they're gone, but the fire scar does. And as the snow melts away, and then you have breakup, and then you have green up, whenever the leaves come out, the grass comes back, except in the burned areas, they're having a tough time because everything got burned off the previous year. So you can see these scars even the next summer, multiple years. It depends on what kind of vegetation there is. You know, some of the tussocky tundra grasses, they'll grow back really quick, but to get a forest to come back, that'll take much longer. So these burn scars, eventually the landscape will fill in the burn scar. It will heal itself, if you want to use that metaphor. But for the next few years, you can still keep track of these on satellite. And again, the reason we want to do that is that the burn scar can facilitate a flood, and it can act like a fire break. So there you are, the veggie band.
Tools. So if you're a weather satellite and you're looking at my bowl of vegetables here, you might be able to pick out which one's the pea, which one's the tomato, and which one's the carrot, and apply that information precisely to whatever it is you're working on there. That is really fascinating stuff, that we have that capability from so high above the planet Earth, and Alaska for that matter.
Yep, eat your veggies.
Yes, definitely. I think I will. I'm hungry. Thanks so much for joining us again, Eric, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you right here next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, really not much different from yesterday, and still thinning a little bit in this, but that's still pretty solid ice there separating the two open areas to the west and east. And it looks like the pattern changing a little bit. Some northerly winds tomorrow may push this ice field southward. There actually could be some new ice growth in here since the sea surface temperatures are not that warm. So that's about the only change. This could actually advance south to a lesser extent over the weekend. Otherwise, really no significant changes. And for the southeast coast winds, light here on the south coast, south at 10, seas 3 to 4 feet. Even lighter on the north coast, south to southeast, only 5 knots expected with 4-foot seas. Southeast 20 though for Lynn Canal. Southerlies 10 knots for the southern central inside waters. And then the outlook for Sunday, south winds at 10 for Lynn Canal, and variable to northeast, 10 knots here for the central inside waters, the southeast at 20 specifically for Clarence Strait. 30-knot winds, that system coming in, kicking those winds up pretty significantly from what you see tomorrow here on Sunday. 30-knot winds again from the east-southeast, seas 12 feet. East winds coming up to 30 knots in the afternoon on the north coast, but the extreme north coast just east at 15. And for Prince William Sound, east winds at 10 tomorrow. Southeast, light southeast winds, 10 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, east 15 for the west side, and 20-knot winds for the Barren Islands, and that continues to increase to 25 knots. Kamishak Bay out of the southeast with 6-foot seas, small craft advisories there, southwest 20. Southern Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, variable to southeast at 15. And it's the southwest breeze that'll carry that low cloud deck northward here during the weekend, and that may advance all the way into northern Cook Inlet, possibly on this light southwest breeze on Sunday. Otherwise, Kamishak Bay southeast 15, northeast 15 for the Barrens, variable 10 for the North Gulf Coast with seas 6 feet, light winds for Prince William Sound. And for the east side of Kodiak, south winds 15 knots, northeast 15 Shelikof Strait, and from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, south side of the peninsula, northeast at 10 with seas 5 to 6 feet. North side, Bering Sea side, north 15 knots with 10-knot winds forecast for Bristol Bay from the north, and seas only 2 feet. A little bit of a change coming up for Sunday there for Bristol Bay, southeast at 15, but seas won't be affected too much, staying at 2 feet. North 10, light all the way down to Cape Sarachev on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. And from Cape Sarachev to Sitkinak, northeast 15 knots, 20-knot winds with 8-foot seas there for small craft advisory level conditions on the east side of Kodiak. And then for the Fox Islands, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots, seas anywhere from 5 to 8 feet. Central Aleutians, northeast at 20, 6 to 8 foot seas there, and then east winds 15 knots west of Adak all the way out to Shimeon at 2 with 7 foot seas. Outlook for Sunday. West side here, the western zones 15 to 20 knot easterlies, central and eastern Aleutians. Northeast at 15 with seas running again 4 to 7 feet. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, north at 20, north side there, up along the Yukon Delta, north at 15, even lighter for Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, just 5 to 10 knots, north 15 for the Pribilofs. And the outlook for Sunday, northeast 10, St. Paul and St. George, and northerlies at 15 here along the coast, northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, north at 5 for Norton Sound. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 20 knot winds here in the far eastern zone, otherwise dropping down to 15, swinging around to the northwest at 10 for the central coast. North 15 on the west side down to Cape Thompson to Wales, northwest 15. Followed by a little bit of an increase here from Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, 20 knot winds from the north-northeast, northeast 15, western Arctic coast northerlies, 10 to 15 here, central and east central areas, and then west 20 for that far eastern zone. And for tonight, dry with a fair amount of clearing here over the interior. Thunderstorm showers diminishing, but may linger the entire night over the central Tanana Valley. But definitely toning down here, Kenai Peninsula, Copper River Basin, definitely the Panhandle. And then we're watching this system beginning to make a jog to the northeast here. Still tomorrow, no effect. Probably some sunshine down over the southern Panhandle. Afternoon showers scattered along the eastern border, and a repeat of today, Friday, for Saturday here over much of interior Alaska. And then less of the thunderstorm threat here over southern Alaska on Sunday, more of a low cloud threat, particularly Cook Inlet and continuing Prince William Sound. Rain moves into the Panhandle with those 30 knot coastal winds. Otherwise, no change for the Bering Sea. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.